Hello everyone, it's Dawn. I have a card that I wanted to show you today. It is using the technique called Joseph's Coat. We're going to be doing some embossing with some clear embossing powder. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's get started. I'm going to be using the stamp set Timeless Tropical. I'll be using the 2 flowers, the leaf, and the pineapple. And also the sentiment, rest and relax, you deserve it. You can use any of the sentiments that you need, but that's what I'm making today. I'm going to be using the colors Misty Moonlight, Pool Party, Magenta Madness, and Old Olive. I'm also going to be using Memento Tuxedo Black ink and Versamark for the embossing. So I'm going to start with a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and this is cut at 5 by 3 3/4. And I'm going to be adding the ink with these little sponge daubers. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding the ink. We'll start with Old Olive. These are the little sponge daubers. When I use them, I label them with the color. That way I can reuse them. They do come in a package of 5. So it's nice to stock up on and have some for if you're using this technique a lot, or the daubers for any project. Good to have. So I'm just going to randomly add the ink to the paper. And it doesn't matter if you get some light or dark shades, or if the dauber leaves some circles, because it's all going to be covered up, and you'll see a little bit later on. So I'm just going to continue to add the ink. So you just want to make sure that all the white is covered, and you can always go back and, oh, there it is, add more ink to it if you want. So I'm just going to make this a little bit darker. Cover up the little whiteness on it. There. Okay, now you want to make sure that this ink is dry completely before the next step. So what I did was, I did the same thing earlier, just some random places, inked it all up. Now this is dry, so I feel comfortable with the next step. So since we are going to be heat embossing, I'm going to use my little embossing buddy. Now, unfortunately, Stampin' Up does not sell this anymore, but I'm sure you can find something similar at your local craft shop. Now, what this does is it removes the static, so when you're adding the embossing powder, it will adhere better and it won't be all sprinkled all over. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add these stamps I decided on. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place them first. And just in a random pattern. Now, I have this large acrylic block, If you don't have one, if you just have the regular acrylic blocks, you can just stamp each one individually. However, I'm using the large one just to pick them all up at once. That way, if I want to make multiples of these cards, I have it all set and I can just keep stamping. So I'm going to be using the Versamark, and I'm just going to ink these up. And then go ahead and place it. Now, if you noticed, I left this corner bare because I want to add another leaf to this side. But since there's only one leaf stamp, I'm just going to take it off and put it on there, and then ink it up. And if you move this around to get the light to catch it, you can kind of see where you had previously stamped. So I'm just going to put that right there. Okay, now we are ready to add the embossing powder. So I'm using clear embossing powder. Now, Stampin' Up sells the embossing powder in these little tubs. I like buying several of them since I use it quite a bit, and just putting it in this little container just makes it easier for me to add it. So I'm just going to add the powder and then shake it off. You just want to make sure that you get all of the images covered. And shake off any excess. Okay, looks like I've got it covered, I think. Okay, we shall see. All right, put this away. And I'm going to heat it up using my heat gun. Now you don't want to get this too close to the paper because it will burn. So let me just go ahead and start this. Okay, now you can see, hopefully with this camera, you can see the shiny embossing. It only takes a few moments to cool off. You want to make sure that it's cool. Okay, now for the very inky part. As you can see, I've been doing this card, and it is messy. So you do want to make sure that you have some scrap paper underneath. Now I'm just going to take this Memento Tuxedo Black, and I'm just going to start rubbing it all over. I know it's a little scary, but you'll see what happens in just a few moments. You can start to see that the images that were embossed doesn't take the ink. No matter how much ink you put on, you can still see the images. So you're just going to continue rubbing and tapping to get the whole paper covered. Make sure you have a nice even coat on it. Okay. Now you just want to take a dry cloth. I'm using a dried out baby wipe. And you're just going to start rubbing the images to get the excess black ink off of it. There, now you can see the colors coming through. Looks great. Okay, we're going to set that aside. And I'm going to take a small piece of black cardstock. This is the basic black, and it is cut 1 inch by 3 inches. And I'm going to use the sentiment, let's see, which one is it? The Rest and Relax, You Deserve It. And again, I'm going to be using the Versamark. And I'm just going to stamp that right in the center of this. Okay. Now this time, I'm going to use the white embossing powder. And we're just going to do the same thing. Be careful not to touch the stamped image. And then tap off the excess. Make sure everything is covered. And then we'll heat emboss it. Now, since I'm using a smaller piece of cardstock, I do like to use some tweezers to hold it, just because since it's small, I don't want to burn my fingers. So let's go ahead and apply the heat. Okay, now you can see that it turned shiny. We'll just set that down. Now we can go ahead and start putting this card together. So I'm going to start by making sure this is cool, and I will wipe some of this excess ink off of me. Okay, I'm going to apply some adhesive and just attach it to this Magenta Madness, which is just about a 1/4 inch larger. So this is 3 1/4 by 1 1/4. Okay, and I'm going to take another piece of Magenta Madness, and this is 5 1/4 by 4. I'm going to attach our embossed piece to it. Center it as best I can. Okay, now I'm going to take a piece of Misty Moonlight, And this is just a full piece of cardstock, which is 8.5 by 11, and I cut it in half. So it's 8.5 by 5.5. I'm just gonna fold this in half to create the card base. I always like using my bone folder to give it a nice crisp edge. Okay, let's go ahead and add adhesive to the back of this. And then center it on the front. Okay, now I'm gonna take my sentiment and add some dimensionals. Peel these backing off and decide where you want this on the card. You can put it here or right in the center or down low. I think I'm gonna go right here. Yeah, I guess I'll go right here and just press that down. Okay, now for the inside, since this is a dark cardstock, I like using a piece of Whisper White, and this is 5 1/4 by 4, and you can attach it right in the center here. If you want to stamp some images before you add your sentiment, or just leave it blank and just write your note or sentiment or whatever it is you'd like, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the small flower. I know it still has some of the Versamark because I didn't clean it yet, but I'm going to use the Magenta Madness. I'm just going to ink that up and then just add a little flower on the corner here. And set that aside. Then I'll add some adhesive. And add that to the inside of the card. And there it is. I love this technique. It is so cool to see the colors pop through. Here's another one I did using the same technique, but using the stamp set whale, oh gosh, what is it? I don't know what I did with it. I believe it's called Whale of a Time or something like that. But yeah, that turned out nice too, with the same color scheme, same technique, just a different stamp set. So as usual, if you have any questions regarding this technique or any of the products used or any of the items I used today, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a great day.